Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and the Safari Week event in PokeMMO has been in full swing in the year 2024. Now, for those who don't know, Safari Week is just a Pokemon community-held event where you're basically just encouraged to go shiny hunt in the Safari Zone and record it to see what happens, see whose heart is broken, and see who comes out victorious. There's honestly not much physical incentive to doing this except for just the communal glory and social aspect of it all, which sometimes is all you need, and this year has been the best Safari Zone week we've ever had in PokeMMO. Legitimately, hear me out. It's mostly because we've had access to the Johto Safari Zone. The Johto Safari Zone gave us fantastic spawns and actually some of the best shiny hunts in the game that we previously didn't have access to. Now, a lot of you guys might not know the best Safari spots all around to shunt. If you want to participate in Safari Week, you're going to have to know some good spots. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Today, I'm going to be going over top 5 Safari shiny hunts in PokeMMO. Now, if it's not obvious, Safari Zone shiny hunting isn't for everybody. Hell, it isn't for most people, most sane people, that is. You have to be kind of a little crazy to be willing to risk a shiny in a Pokemon game and have the chance of it fleeing, especially in a Pokemon game where the shiny rate is 1 out of 30,000. Secret tree PC, by the way. But as long as you won't quit the game if you lose a Safari shiny, I recommend trying it out. It is kind of liberating. So let's go ahead and get into spot number 1. We're starting off here in the Johto Safari Zone. We're going to head over. We're going to pair 500 Pokeyen. In the Johto Safari Zone, you do have to select a location every single time, so knowing where to go here is even more important than other Safari Zones. The first spot is going to be probably one of the most common and one of the most hunted spots in any PokeMMO Safari Zone. It's going to be Lapras at Rocky Beach. Make sure to head over to Rocky Beach. If we switch to channel 1, I'm sure we'll see at least a couple people. It's really early in the morning at the moment. Usually this spot is honestly way more full. This is kind of quiet for the spot, and there's still a lot of people here at one spot. I recommend having a swarm Pokemon on you in the Safari Zone to slightly increase your encounter rate by 10%. And if you run back and forth here, you have a 20% chance of running into Lapras. There's also lots of Poliwhirl, Poliwag, and Magikarp here, and then basically just Lapras. It's pretty much all of the spawns here. If you pop a lure, you'll see Dragonair, though I really don't recommend it. I usually say that lures are so cheap, around 15,000 Pokeyen per hour to pop, that it's pretty much best to use lures at every single spawn in PokeMMO when you're single encounter hunting. However, in the Safari Zone, it often adds Pokemon that aren't easy to catch. So even if you see a Dragonair shiny in the Safari Zone, you don't really want to see that because you're not going to be able to catch it. The odds of you actually capturing that Dragonair are so drastically low. And I'm the one shunting in the Safari Zone. I'm crazy enough to do this. I wouldn't pop a lure here. That's a little too off the deep end in my opinion. But you do have a 20% chance to encounter Lapras here, and then if you encounter any shiny in the Safari Zone in PokeMMO, just spam Safari Balls. Please listen to that advice. The best catch rate from everyone's understanding from all the math that's been done is to just spam Safari Balls in PokeMMO. Maybe different in other games, but in PokeMMO, from our understanding, just spamming Safari Balls is the best. There's a 30% chance for you to catch Lapras if you just spam Safari Balls. So keep all of that in mind. 20% chance to encounter, 1 out of 30,000 odds of it being shiny, and then a 30% chance for you to catch it. As brutal as all of that sounds, from my understanding, this is still the best way to shiny hunt Lapras in the entire game. On average, you're going to have like 2 out of 3 shiny Lapras flee from you. Like on average, you'll have to encounter 3 shiny Lapras just for you to actually catch one. And it is still better to do that than to spend the 2,000 hours and 120 to 150 million Pokeyen on an egg hunt. You want to avoid egg hunts at all costs in PokeMMO, and doing Lapras here in the Safari Zone, hilariously, is better than an egg hunt. Now, I do have 2 more spawns to talk about in Johto, but this is where things get a little more complicated because this is where I have to talk about rotational spawns in Johto. So essentially, the way it works is every in-game day, so for example, it's Sunday, every in-game day, there is a chance that certain Pokemon can spawn at certain areas. So for example, if we head over to the Meadow area, for example, this is one of the best shiny hunts in the entire game. You can actually encounter, believe it or not, Riolu here. The weird thing about rotational spawns is that none of them are actually in the Pokedex, but Thankfully, I was one of the first people to discover this location during the release of Johto. I just kind of ran around the Johto Safari Zone and just tested things and just see what was happening, what was going on. I do usually pop lures here, to be honest. I don't know like if that's worth it or not, but I usually do. You can go ahead and pop lures here if you want to. You can not if you don't want to. You can test it, see what's best. Get back to me, honestly. Data would be fantastic. It's really hard to get data and statistics on a lot of this stuff because it's just so niche. How many people really want to shiny hunt in the Safari Zone? But yeah, you can run back and forth at the spots. You can encounter things like a lot of Jigglypuffs you'll see, but there is a chance on certain days. Now keep in mind, it's only certain days, but on certain days, Riolu will spawn here. Honestly, a decent rule of thumb is if you only see one other person here, odds are Riolu isn't here. But if you see a bunch of other people here, it might be Riolu day. You can always also check in my Discord. You can even sign up for roles in my Discord, individual roles, to get pinged when Riolu spawns or when Shuckle spawns. There are certain spawns like that in the Safari Zone that rotate out every day or have that chance at it. When Riolu is here, it is actually the best way to shiny hunt Riolu in the entire game from my understanding. Like pretty by far from what I've heard. Once again, it's really hard to get data on PokeMMO Safari Zone stats and stuff, but from my understanding, I believe you have either a 40 or 60% chance to catch Riolu if it is asleep at night. That is truly peak best time to go for Riolu. If it is nighttime in the Safari Zone and you happen to encounter a shiny Riolu, that's where most people have caught their shiny Riolus. From what I've seen is when it's nighttime and they're asleep, you have a really solidly high chance to catch one of the rarest shinies in PokeMMO. For those who don't know, Riolu is a brutal edge hunt, the Riolu/Lucario, because every single time you breed a Lucario, it's going to immediately turn into a Riolu, and Riolu is a baby Pokemon, so you can't breed it, obviously. So you have to level it up and give it happiness in the daytime. You have to do that to every single one just to be able to rebreed it again. It's a huge pain, takes a lot of time. This, hilariously, should be the best way to shiny hunt Riolu in PokeMMO. When it is here, it should be a pretty low chance to encounter as well. I think somewhere between 5 to 10% would be my guess, but once again, we don't know for sure. I'm going to switch over to another Johto rotational spot, so keep that in mind here. If you didn't watch the last section, I recommend checking that out because you're going to need a lot of the information from that. And once again, if you encounter any shinies in these areas, make sure to spam Safari Balls. So next up, number 3 is Shuckle in the Marshland. This is another Johto rotational spawn, so he's only here on certain days, but if you run back and forth, there is a random chance on random days that you could run into a Shuckle spawn, and if he's here for that day, so you can go ahead and stay there for a little bit of period of time. But yeah, this is much better than going to the Rock Smash Rocks over in Hoenn, since those reset every like 5 minutes or so. It's not a very fast jump by any means. You could also shunt Shuckle just outside of the Safari Zone with other Rock Smash Rocks in Johto. This is where it kind of becomes like, is this really the best way to shiny hunt Shuckle? It's questionable. It's hard to tell what the best way is. If you don't want to go for this in the Safari Zone, I get it. I understand. That this is one that like you could go to if you want to shunt for Safari Week, but you don't really need to necessarily like go out of your way to go check this at all times if it's not Safari Week, for example. Or you could if you're a Giga Chad and absolutely want that Safari caught Pokeball on your shiny Shuckle. That's enough of the Johto Safari Zone. Let's go check out some other spots and some other Safari Zones. Next up is Aipom. If you don't know, for the Hoenn Safari Zone, you do have to start over at Lily Cove City, and then when you want to bike over to the west really quick, so I'll just show you that path super quickly. We'll head over here, and then bam, boom, you're at the Safari Zone. Super easy. You want to head over here, head inside, pay the 500 Pokeyen, and you do have to head a little bit of a path in here as well. You also do need, I believe, the Elite Four completed in Hoenn to go access this area that I'm about to show you. I'm going to be showing you the Aipom spot. I think, from my understanding, this is the best place to go for Aipom in the entire game. You could go for him very passively via honey trees. Honey trees are a very interesting shiny hunting method, but it's really passive, really tough to actually get a shiny from them. Very few encounters per hour, and honestly kind of expensive, but I still do them every now and again. If you really like a lot of the shinies there, you can try to do those passively, but that's up to you. But if you follow this path in the Hoenn Safari Zone, you can do two things. You could actually head up here and then go immediately left over to the Aipom spot, but I like to come up here personally and come check these rocks really quick. I always come rock smash all these rocks just to check for Shuckle encounters and Shuckle spawns, and then after checking all of the rocks, I head down south I can show you. So after checking all the rocks, I head down south, I jump right here, and a lot of people run back and forth here. Aipom is a really cool shiny. If you haven't seen it, it's that super cool pink monkey. Who wouldn't want one of these bad boys? Perfect. There's one on the GTL at least. Okay, like a really beautiful, really cool shiny. This probably should be the best place to hunt it that I understand in the game. The other, best location would probably be, once again, honey trees. Headbutts don't really count. Headbutt sucks. Maybe they'll buff headbutts at some point, but for now, those don't really do anything. It's really between Safari Zone and Honey Tree, and I think Safari Zone is honestly probably better, even though you'll probably have 2 or 3 shiny Aipoms run from you before you actually catch one shiny. It's always the crux of these spots, is like you probably will have a few shinies run from you on average before even being able to catch one statistically. Now, I don't know the exact stats on Aipom. I will say I've been here for a while. I would guesstimate that it's around a 20 to 40% chance to catch Aipom. That's my guesstimate. Once again, I don't know for sure. Really hard to get information on these spots, but this is the Aipom spot. I spent a lot of time here personally. There's also Miltank here, which is kind of the spawn you actually want the least, because this thing is really hard to catch, and there is now a ×5 horde spot, even though it's a 20-80 split over in Johto, so you kind of want Miltank the very least here. Pineco, if you can catch it, would be amazing, because Pineco is another egg shunt that's also at this spot, funnily enough, and people always kind of forget. Once again, headbutt spots are irrelevant. People kind of forget that Pineco is an egg hunt, but it is. If you actually want to go for Pineco in PokeMMO Shiny, the best way is to actually egg hunt it. So probably better than hunting here, but if you want that passive, I guess, if you want to go for Aipom, check out this spot. Hoot here as well. There's some really cute mons here. Ledybun, Sunkern, I like those shinies. I know most people don't. Something to keep in mind. Really, Aipom is the big target here for sure. Next up, I do want to get at least one spot for each Safari Zone, so we're heading over to the Kanto Safari Zone, although I will say, unless you're here for nostalgia or for personal fun, I don't really recommend shiny hunting in the Kanto Safari Zone. I don't know of a Pokemon in here that it's like, oh yeah, that's the best way to hunt it. I don't think that exists. I think you're going to the Kanto Safari Zone for fun or for flavor or just because you like it sort of situation. I will say probably the best spawn you want to go for in here that's actually catchable and a decent way to hunt it would be Execute. Rhyhorn, you can do ×5 hordes of like Rhydon and stuff, Rhyperior, etc. But the Execute right here, this first patch of grass right in the beginning of the situation is probably the best. If you run into things like a shiny Pinsir, you can run into shiny Pinsir, shiny Scyther, shiny Chansey. Hopefully you never have that happen, but you're not catching them. Like, there's just the odds of you catching Pinsir, Scyther, Chansey in the Safari Zone, especially Chansey. Man, I have seen many shiny Chanseys flee in my lifetime. I've only been able to see 1 or 2 live. Now that's a really cool thing, but I've only, I don't know, maybe I've seen 1 caught, like in terms of screenshot and stuff. They're very hard to catch here. Paris or Rhyhorn or like Nidoran, these are honestly the shinies you want here just so you have the chance at catching them. Execute at like an uncommon encounter rate is probably the best, since Execute is a single encounter only shiny, and the best way to shiny hunt Execute is actually in Kanto, if I'm not mistaken. Generally, if you actually just want to shiny hunt for Execute, I would probably recommend going over to Route 23 in Kanto. That's where I legendary hunt a lot of times. If I ever want to go for that, I just sort of shiny hunt there. You can also get Munchlax if you lure. I wouldn't recommend shunning in the Kanto Safari Zone, but this is the option I would give you. I know I said this would be top 5, but I want to give you guys one spot at each location. This is number 6 on this list. This is over in Sinnoh, over at Pastoria City. We're heading over to the Great Marsh, and this is another spot that, like, I wouldn't recommend hunting here. You can do it for fun. You can do it for flavor. You can do it to live on the edge and have that risk, which is really what Safari Zone shunting is all about at the end of the day. Yeah, there are some great shunts in some of these spots where it actually is optimal, but there's far and few between versus how many are actually, okay, I'm just here for the meme, right? So in Sinnoh, in the Great Marsh, I usually run back up and forth, up and down on this like big strip of grass. Now, this does have not quite rotationals. I mean, I guess it kind of does. Like Johto, it's more like there are Pokemon that appear in certain, I think it is rotationals, like on certain days versus not. I run up and down on this patch and just hope that it's the correct rotational if I'm ever here. You can see things like Yanma and Scorpy here. Two incredible shinies, to be fair, but your chance of catching them is pretty low. To be fair, I found out today your chance of catching shiny Scorpy is actually way better than I expected. I believe it's a 45% chance to catch is what I was told, which is pretty high. So if you're here for Scorpy, it's sad that we're like, oh yeah, 45% chance of catching the shiny if you happen to encounter it at a very rare rate. Oh yeah, that's quite good. This is what the Safari does to your brain. So, you know, Scorpy, Yanma, yeah, there's Yanma. Like, these are some greats. I love these shinies. You can also go for Carnivine. I doubt many people need that. Carnivine or Krogunk here. Like, there's also Tropius. There are some cool Pokemon in the Great Marsh, but most of them are pretty rough catch rates. It's not really like the most optimal spot for anything here from my understanding. I know you can also repel trick for Yanma here. I don't know how good that is, / if it's actually worth it. All these spots are super brutal, but if you want to do it for fun, I encourage you to go do it. That's what Safari Week is all about. I've gotten a couple Yanmas back to back here, so maybe it's not the worst spot for Yanma in the game. So I don't know. Come test it. Come check it out. And yeah, that's the last spot I want to cover today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful, and if it was, make sure to leave a like on it, and dislike if it wasn't. Thank you guys for watching my Safari Week journey, and everybody else who's shunting in the Safari Zone right now. I feel like the whole point of Safari Week is to create memories, and I feel like there's something beautiful about that. Kind of opening yourself up to failure in life is a scary but important thing, I think, to really feel alive. So hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully you guys are enjoying Safari Week. Subscribe if you want to see daily videos. Follow me on Twitch if you want to see streams throughout the entire week. I've been going live as soon as I wake up, I shower, I go live, I shunt, and I repeat. Discord's down below for that resource like I talked about, and if you want to just join a really cool community, and if you want to go above and beyond and support my content, if it's been helpful enough to you, or entertaining background content while you grind PokeMMO, YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, Twitch subs, and PayPal/Venmo really do allow me to do this. I could not do this without that kind of support, so thank you guys so much. Have a fantastic day, and I am just wishing you all the utmost best of luck. If you ever happen to find a shiny in the Safari Zone, I hope you catch it. Thanks again. Hey, thank you so very much for watching until the very end of the video. That means the world to me, and everyone on this list means even more to me for helping support the channel every single day. Thanks so much.